In the fractured twilight of the New Midlands, dusk settled like a stubborn virus, its hues a glitching spectrum of synthetic orange and bruised violet. Milo stepped carefully along the crumbling edge of an abandoned biotech facility, his boots crunching glass that had once been a solar panel dream. The air tasted of ozone and cold iron, the scent of a city that had given up trying to remember its own name. He'd come looking for scraps, half-charged batteries, data cores, maybe even a working coffee pod if he was really lucky. Instead, he found something entirely different. At first, it was just a shape slumped against the carbon fiber wall, a shape that hummed faintly, like a half-dead star. As he drew closer, his headlamp revealed her. Her skin was smooth, almost too smooth, as if the universe had forgotten to assign her any blemishes. Pale with a subtle iridescence, she shimmered with an ethereal glow that made her seem unreal. Her hair fell in tangled silver ropes across her shoulders, and her ears, long, elegant, and arched backward, like the wings of some nocturnal creature, quivered at every sound. Blood, a thin, silvery fluid that sparkled like liquid starlight, pooled at her side. Milo felt his heart do a weird little somersault. "Well, I'll be," he muttered. "Either I'm high on exhaust fumes, or I've just found a real-life space elf." He knelt beside her, careful not to startle. Her eyes, half-lidded and glowing faintly like nebulae, flickered open. Panic etched lines across her delicate face. She tried to push herself up, but the effort only caused more of that eerie, starry blood to spill. "Stay still," he said, raising both hands in the universal sign of, "I'm not gonna kill you." She winced, her ears flattening against her skull, a gesture that reminded him of a terrified house cat. "Look," he continued, his voice soft but laced with his usual brand of sarcasm. "I know you probably think I'm here to disembowel you or whatever, but trust me, I've had enough guts and gore for one day." She regarded him with an expression that said she didn't believe a word, but exhaustion was winning. "You? Human," she rasped, the word thick with an accent he couldn't place. "Your kind, monsters." He sighed dramatically. "Oh, fantastic. My reputation precedes me." He rummaged in his pack, pulling out a tattered first aid kit that had seen better days, and probably different planets. "Let's see," he muttered. "Antiseptic, nanosutures, chocolate bar. No idea how that got in there. Ah, here we go." He held up a small injector, its tip glowing a faint blue. "This should help with the pain. At least it won't make it worse." She flinched as he reached for her wound, her ears twitching with distrust. Milo paused, his own heart thumping. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he said, softer now. "Swear on my last functional coffee pod." That earned him the faintest twitch of her lips, like a dying star flickering in the void. "Coffee pod?" she echoed, as if the concept were some ancient relic. He chuckled. "Yeah, you know, brown, bitter, addictive, like most of my exes." Carefully, he pressed the injector to her side, and the device hissed softly, spreading numbing agents and micro-stitches across the wound. She let out a breath that sounded like a sigh of relief, or maybe disbelief. Milo sat back on his heels, grinning despite the cold air that bit at his neck. "See? Not so bad, huh? I'd say I deserve a medal, but I'd settle for a sandwich." Her gaze softened, confusion knitting her brow. "You, help me," she whispered, as though the idea itself defied logic. He shrugged. "Well, I figured I'd either help you or get eaten by you. I like to hedge my bets." She laughed, a soft, melodic sound that resonated somewhere deep in his chest. And in that brief flicker of laughter, Milo realized that the night might be longer than he'd planned, but it might just be worth it. Milo's boots scuffed the concrete of the abandoned subway tunnels, each step sending echoes ricocheting down the darkened passageways like startled bats. Overhead, cracked light panels flickered with the erratic heartbeat of a dying star, illuminating walls that bore the scars of ancient graffiti, names, symbols, and declarations of love now lost to time. It felt like walking through a forgotten museum of human stubbornness, each scribble a desperate plea that someone, anyone, remembered. Aray shuffled beside him, her long ears twitching at every sound. She wore a ragged blanket he'd found draped over an old subway turnstile, its faded Mind the Gap logo now more ironic than helpful. Her wound had stopped bleeding, but she moved with the stiffness of a solar rig under maintenance. Every so often she glanced at him, eyes wide and suspicious, as if expecting him to suddenly sprout fangs and devour her. He found her paranoia both tragic and, admittedly, a little funny. "So," he said, breaking the silence, "you got a name? Or do I just call you Space Elf forever?" She blinked, her gaze darting away like a startled drone. "Array," she said finally, voice low and melodic, tinged with that peculiar accent that made even mundane words sound like the hum of a distant starship. "Array," he repeated, letting the name roll around his tongue like a drop of honey. "Nice. I'm Milo, professional scavenger, part-time stand-up comedian, occasional savior of the universe." Her ears gave a slight flick. A movement he was quickly learning signaled either confusion or amusement, or possibly both. "Stand-up comedian?" she asked, tilting her head. "Is that a combat role?" He laughed, a sound that bounced off the walls like an unruly particle. "Only if you count battling terrible punchlines. Trust me, it's a skill." He waved his hand at the tunnel around them. "Welcome to my humble abode. It's not exactly the Ritz, but at least there aren't any screaming babies or political ads." She eyed the rusted tracks with a mixture of wonder and horror. "This human dwelling is underground. You live like—" She searched for the right word. "Like moles?" He grinned. "Hey, don't knock the mole lifestyle. Warm in winter, cool in summer, plus the occasional free train ride. If the train's not on fire, that is." She didn't laugh exactly, but her lips curved slightly. It felt like a small victory, like defusing a bomb with a rubber chicken. They pressed on, navigating a labyrinth of corridors that smelled of oil and regret. Old ad posters fluttered in the breeze from a distant ventilation shaft, promising tomorrow's dreams today, in fonts that now seemed like relics of a civilization that had dreamt too big and delivered too little. At last, they reached Milo's hideout, a cramped maintenance office crammed with mismatched furniture and battered tech salvaged from the ruins. A solar lantern glowed softly in the corner, illuminating shelves stacked with everything from protein bars to a dented astrolabe. "Home sweet hovel," he announced grandly, gesturing at the mess. "Pull up a milk crate." Arai lowered herself carefully, her eyes scanning the clutter. Her ears perked as she spotted a small, rusted harmonica wedged between two cans of instant coffee. "What is this?" she asked, lifting it like it might bite her. "That," he said, grinning, "is humanity's greatest invention. Also the worst. I can't actually play it, unless you count summoning raccoons." She eyed him with an expression halfway between horror and fascination. "You are a strange species," she said, her voice soft. He winked. "Yeah, but at least we're entertaining." In the flickering light, surrounded by relics of a broken world, they sat together. One an alien with ears like crescent moons, the other a human with more jokes than sense. Two survivors waiting for tomorrow to find them. A week had drifted by in the shadows of the New Midlands, each sunrise a half-hearted attempt at chasing the night away. Milo and Arai found a fragile rhythm, an alliance of convenience that leaned on laughter and necessity in equal measure. The old maintenance office had transformed into a haphazard embassy between worlds. Her bioluminescent star charts sprawled across the cracked walls, his tangle of human tech humming with defiance. Milo sat cross-legged on the floor, soldering together what he liked to call his universal doohickey. Wires sparked like tiny lightning bugs as he muttered curses under his breath. Arai perched nearby, legs folded neatly, eyes following every move with that unsettling intensity of hers. Ears swiveled forward, catching every click and hiss. "You humans," she said, voice lilting like a lullaby from another star. "You build things out of broken pieces. It's primitive, but oddly endearing," he snorted, nearly singeing his eyebrow. "Yeah, well, some of us didn't get fancy starships and quantum spanners in our lunchboxes. We make do." He held up the half-finished device, a mishmash of human salvage and a couple of alien circuits she'd reluctantly contributed. "This baby's gonna let us scan for any other survivors, or at least pick up pirate radio broadcasts. Or maybe summon cosmic raccoons. Hard to say. Her ears twitched. Cosmic raccoons? He grinned. Long story, don't ask. The point is, if we can get this working, we might just avoid another ambush from those. He paused, glancing at her. Your people call them humans, right? Erai's lips curved, a sad smile that barely reached her eyes. Yes, humans. The ones who. She trailed off, the memory of old fears and fresh wounds flickering in her gaze. Hey, Milo said gently, leaning back. We're not all raving lunatics with plasma guns. Some of us can barely handle a can opener. He lifted a battered multi-tool like a trophy. Case in point. She huffed, a sound suspiciously like a laugh. Your kind is confusing. My mother taught me that humans would dissect me for study or mount my ears on their walls. Her fingers drifted to her ears, tracing the delicate ridges. Wow, he deadpanned. That's specific. Can't say I've ever met anyone with a hobby like that. He set the universal doohickey down and turned serious. Listen, I get it. Humans can be, well, we can be awful, but we can also be pretty okay. I mean, who else would risk getting vaporized by your people's death rays just to bring you a cup of reconstituted coffee? Erai tilted her head, ears catching the light like slivers of moon. Death rays? We don't have death rays. That's. She paused, confusion clouding her features. Oh, that was a joke? He gave her a thumbs up. Nailed it. Silence settled between them, comfortable in its own awkward way. Outside, the wind howled through the tunnels like an angry spirit. The universal doohickey sputtered to life with a weak, pitiful glow. Milo gave it a triumphant grin. Ha! Who's the primitive now? Erai leaned forward, her eyes glimmering like twin galaxies. It's functional? You built it from garbage and hope? Hey, he protested. I also used duct tape and cosmic optimism. Her laughter, quiet and musical, filled the cramped space like a melody from another dimension. Perhaps humans aren't all monsters, she whispered. Milo's grin softened. Guess that means I'm not getting those ears mounted on my wall, huh? Her smile widened. Not today. For the first time since the stars had fallen, Milo felt the world shift. Just a little. In the middle of all that broken concrete and battered technology, something fragile sparked to life. Trust, trembling but real, like the birth of a new star. A pale crescent moon hung over the ruins like an ornament, its light slipping through cracks in the ancient cityscape. Milo and Erai sat shoulder to shoulder in the maintenance office, the air thick with the scent of scorched circuitry and instant coffee. The universal doohickey, his patchwork beacon, hummed with a low, uncertain energy, as though it too wasn't quite sure how it had ended up here. Ari's long ears twitched in the gloom, catching the faint thrum of a distant drone patrol. She'd spent the last few days teaching Milo her language, or at least the rudimentary parts of it that didn't involve interstellar curses. The words rolled off her tongue like dew on alien leaves, soft, melodic, and impossibly complex. Milo tried repeating them, mangling the syllables with all the grace of a malfunctioning AI. Try again, Erai insisted, suppressing a smile. It's Kailu Thashara. The accent matters. Otherwise, you might be saying my grandmother's socks instead of I trust you. He wiped a smudge of grease from his cheek. Kailu Thashara. Her ears perked. Better. Almost as good as a 2-day-old hatchling. Milo grinned, leaning back on his elbows. High praise. I'll put that on my resume. Linguistic prodigy, fluent in cosmic baby talk. A spark of laughter flickered in her eyes. For a moment, the silence between them felt less like a chasm and more like a bridge. She traced a finger along the universal doohickey's makeshift casing. Your human technology is chaotic. It feels alive, like it's ready to rebel at any moment. Yeah, that's our secret weapon, he quipped. Our tech's so unpredictable it confuses even us. Keeps the cosmic raccoons on their toes. Her brows furrowed. You and your raccoons. Hey, those little guys are no joke. A distant clang echoed through the tunnels, a sound like metal protesting its own existence. Milo's grin faded. That's not one of your people's jokes, right? Because if it is, your sense of humor needs work. Ari's ears flattened, the tips trembling like wind-tossed reeds. Number, that's human, a patrol maybe, or raiders. She rose to her feet with feline grace, fingers brushing the hilt of the plasma blade she'd hidden in a loose panel. They're close. Milo's chest tightened. He scrambled to his feet, scanning the darkness. Great. Just what I needed. I was hoping for more cosmic raccoons, not cosmic murderers. She cast him a sharp look, half amused, half annoyed. Is everything a joke to you? He paused, his smile fading into something softer. Not everything. Just the parts I'm afraid of. Her expression softened, though her hand never left the hilt of her weapon. Then let's hope they're in the mood for laughter. The universal doohickey pulsed faintly, casting uneven shadows on the cracked walls. Outside, the sound of boots on metal drew closer, a grim reminder that trust was still a fragile currency. Milo reached for his multi-tool, a pitiful excuse for a weapon, but better than nothing. Guess it's time to test my stand-up routine, he muttered. Arai's ears flicked, the movement sharp but graceful. If we survive this, she said, you'll teach me more jokes. He managed a grin. Deal. Let's go greet the guests. And together, under the fickle light of a broken moon, they stepped into the shadows, an alien warrior with ears like silvered leaves, and a human with more bad jokes than good sense, ready to meet whatever waited in the darkness. The corridor beyond their hideout stretched into darkness, like the throat of some long-dead leviathan. Shadows played tricks on the eye, twisting the broken steel ribs of the structure into menacing shapes. Milo led the way, his footsteps muffled by years of accumulated dust. Arai followed close, her plasma blade clutched loosely in her hand, its glow the color of an alien sunrise. They moved in silence at first, each step an act of trust as much as necessity. The universal doohickey, tucked into Milo's pack, emitted a soft, sporadic whine, like a nervous droid. Every so often, Arai's ears flicked at the sound, as though it tickled some part of her evolutionary wiring. Milo found it oddly comforting, like a dog's wagging tail, an alien dog with ears that could pick up pirate radio broadcasts. At a junction where the old maglev lines intersected, they paused. The walls here were decorated with a fresco of forgotten rebellions, hastily painted slogans, stylized flames, stick-figure revolutionaries with makeshift laser rifles. One line in particular caught Milo's eye. Humanity rises, sprayed in dripping red. He snorted. That aged well, he muttered. Arai's ears flattened, her face tightening. Humans, your people, always rising, always conquering. It's why we were taught to fear you. Her voice was low but steady, a blade honed by memories. Milo shot her a sideways look. Hey, in our defense, we're pretty good at messing up our own stuff too. Equal opportunity chaos, that's us. He reached out, brushing his fingers across the old paint. Besides all this, he gestured to the ruin, the collapsed ceiling, the air that smelled like ozone and regret. Proof that we're not as invincible as you were told. She regarded him, ears tilting with that alien grace. You are strange, dangerous. Yes, but strange. You laugh when you should scream. You make jokes when you should be afraid. Milo grinned. Well, screaming doesn't solve problems. Jokes at least make them more interesting. A sudden sharp sound, a boot scuffing on metal, snapped both their heads around. From the far end of the tunnel, a group of humans emerged, ragged as the ruins themselves. Their eyes glinted like half-dead stars, hungry and desperate. At their leader's hip hung a plasma carbine, its barrel scorched from use. Hey there, Milo called, lifting a hand. Nice evening for a stroll, huh? The leader's sneer was a crack in his face. Hand over whatever tech you got, and maybe we let you keep your skin. His voice was acid, his fingers twitching near the trigger. Arai's blade lit up, a thin arc of blue fire. I would advise you to reconsider, she said coolly, her ears high and proud. The leader barked a laugh. An alien? Well, that's a first. I always wondered what your kind sounded like when they screamed. Milo took a step forward, placing himself between Arai and the thugs. Look, pal, he said, voice calm but sharp as a broken blade. You can try to take our stuff, but I gotta warn you, she's got ears that pick up on the pitch of your lies. And me? He thumbed the universal doohickey, which chose that exact moment to let out a defiant, high-pitched whine. I've got the galaxy's worst luck, and a device that might just summon cosmic raccoons. The leader's eyes flicked from Milo to Aray to the doohickey, confusion and annoyance dancing in his gaze. You think I'm scared of some half-dead tech and a pretty pair of ears? Arai's voice cut through the air like a plasma bolt. Try me. A tense beat, then the leader's carbine lifted. Milo tensed, but before the weapon fired, Arai lunged, her blade a streak of light and sound. The plasma hissed as it sliced through the air, but stopped short, aimed not at the leader, but at the ground, cracking the concrete between them. The raiders flinched. Milo couldn't help but grin. She's a pacifist, he said brightly. You know, unless you're a cosmic raccoon. The leader hesitated, eyes darting between them. Then with a snarl, he jerked his head at his crew. This ain't worth it, he spat. Let's go. They vanished into the shadows, leaving only silence and the smell of scorched concrete. Milo let out a slow breath. Arai's blade winked out, leaving the tunnel dark but warm, with a new kind of trust. Milo gave her a lopsided smile. Remind me to hire you as my bodyguard. Her ears twitched. And you as my stand-up comedian. Together they moved on, two survivors with a language of jokes and light, walking the broken path of a universe that might yet be worth saving. Dawn leaked into the tunnels like a hesitant visitor, pale and uncertain, casting milky light on the broken city. Milo leaned against a cracked support beam, eyes half closed, feeling every bruise and scrape from the night before. The air smelled of ozone and rust, a fitting perfume for the place that had become their unlikely refuge. The universal doohickey, still humming like a defiant child, pulsed softly in his pack, its screen blinking a final diagnostic. Signal received. Arai stood beside him, her ears catching the sunrise like silver antennae. She'd tied a length of ragged cloth around her waist to hold the last of her star blood from seeping. The plasma blade, now dulled and cracked from overuse, rested against the wall. Even in its battered state, it looked impossibly elegant, alien technology reduced to a stubborn survival tool. Signal's out, Milo said, nodding at the doohickey. I rigged it to ping the old comm arrays on the orbiting derelicts. If there's anyone left up there, they'll know where to find us. He hesitated, a wry grin tugging at his lips. Assuming they're not cosmic raccoons with a vendetta. Arai's mouth curved, the smallest smile, an expression he'd come to treasure like sunrise after a blackout. Your jokes, they still make little sense, she said, her voice low, gentle. But they have grown on me. He laughed, surprised by how natural it felt. Yeah, well, laughter's the last line of defense against a universe that keeps trying to kill us. He shifted, meeting her gaze. You know, you've got a pretty good sense of humor yourself, once you get past the whole humans are monsters thing. Her ears twitched, a subtle but telling sign of thoughtfulness. I was taught to hate your kind, to fear. But you, she hesitated, searching the wreckage for the right words. You showed me that trust can grow, even in the most barren soil. A warmth spread through Milo's chest, like a pulse from some ancient sun. He'd come here looking for scraps and survival. Instead, he'd found, what? An alien woman with ears like silver leaves? A friend? Something more? He wasn't sure, but he knew one thing. She'd changed him. He'd learned that sometimes survival wasn't about plasma blades and patchwork tech. It was about choosing to trust, to reach out, even when the darkness loomed. He nodded toward the tunnel's end, where the morning light beckoned. So what's next, Aray? We wait for your people to pick us up? Or mine to finally get their act together? She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the new dawn, a new world waiting to be built. Perhaps both, she said softly, and perhaps neither. We make our own path, Milo, together. She reached out, her slender fingers finding his. The contact was electric, a simple human gesture that felt like the most profound thing in the universe. Milo squeezed her hand, grinning. Together, huh? I like the sound of that, though I gotta warn you, my cooking's even worse than my jokes. She laughed, a sound that shimmered like starlight. Then I shall have to teach you better. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of possibility. The city lay in ruin, But within its bones, hope stirred. Fragile, persistent. Milo and Arai stepped forward, their shadows merging in the morning light. No longer a scavenger and a fugitive, but two survivors forging something new in the ruins of the old. And in the hush between heartbeats, in the glow of the rising sun, the galaxy felt just a little less cold.